Hello everyone and welcome to the very first episode of Confessions of a Con Artist. This is a series where I discuss my experiences as an artist at Dutch anime and comic conventions. Today we will be discussing Heroes Made in Asia, held in the Evenementenhal Gorinchem on the 30th of April and 1st of May of 2022. And I have to say, this con was pretty special to me, not in the least because it's the most expensive con I've ever tabled at. The net cost of my table space at Heroes Made in Asia is triple the cost of my usual table space at TomoCon, which is both a meter, which is, quite steep, even for me with my day job. But I'm willing to invest, especially in something that can grow and in something that can help me grow as an artist as well. So I decided to have some faith and put my best foot forward. This con was also quite special because we were actively selling our mother's wares for the first time. She is a crafter and she can make basically anything with just a thread and needle. She crocheted a handful of Pikachu keychains, a Pikachu plushie, a Psyduck plushie, and a My Neighbor Totoro keychain that would be finished on Saturday and sold on Sunday. And of course we have the Pandora Hearts cosplay that she made for me when I was 16, and I haven't fit in for well over 7 years now, so we are looking for a loving home for my Alice cosplay. There was actually a lot of interest for the coat, but unfortunately nobody bid. Now, in between footage of the actual convention, you will be seeing my progress making my Spy Family pins. These will be a returning theme of this convention, as the sales of these buttons made up about 55% of all of my earnings from this convention. Needless to say, if I did not make these, I would have been in deep trouble. So basically this convention started like any other. Normally I like to sleep in on the weekends, however when it's con time, and that means getting up at absolutely unholy hours of the day. In this case it was I believe 6:30 in the morning. We had to be in the car by 7:10 on the first day, which was Saturday the 30th of April. Now, since I have an office job and we quite often have clients over, and sometimes unannounced, I don't really get to wear my geeky shirts that often, so conventions are often that outlet for me. So on the Saturday I wore my favorite t-shirt, which is a hooded licensed Steven Universe t-shirt inspired by Garnet, whom I love because gay. The reason we had to be up that early is because there was a build-up day on Friday. However, both me and my brother were otherwise occupied with things such as my day job and college, for my brother at least. So yeah, no opportunity to set up on Friday, which meant getting up at the crack of dawn, maybe eat a quick cheeky oat bar, get some tea into a thermos, and get in the car pretty much immediately. Now, of course, this wasn't too bad because we had each other's company, and misery does like company. So anyway, we get ready, we pack our things into the car, and we start on our way to the venue. So I'm sitting there in the car blasting anime music while my brother takes us safely and soundly to the convention venue. Now we get to the venue and it's just a mad dash to set up. Basically, we get there at 8 in the morning. We still have to pick up our wristbands and dealer information and our parking tickets as well, which, hint hint, this will be important later, were not included in the envelope with our wristbands. So yeah, we get to our table at, by my estimation, about 10, 15, 20-ish past 8 in the morning. Our booth has to be operational by 9 in the morning because that's when the convention opens to the VIP ticket holders, which means people who paid extra to be on the floor an hour early. The convention itself opens to regular visitors at 10 in the morning. Also of note, this con we finally brought back our bargain bin, which had been on hiatus since the start of COVID, because we felt it wouldn't be safe for a bunch of people to wade with their hands through, I'd say, quite decently discounted buttons. Of course, we still offered hand sanitizer to those who felt more comfortable using it afterwards, but at least we felt like it could be semi-safely done again. So yeah, we're basically scrambling to get everything set up. We put our tablecloths on the table, we're hammering our song mics together, and we are in general just hanging up our stuff, and lo and behold, we are set up at about 9:15. And while it's technically still too late, I would still argue that it is record time for us. And actually, it wasn't even that bad that it took so long for our booth to be set up, and that we were basically set up a quarter of an hour late, because most of the people who had paid for VIP tickets didn't immediately go to the artist alley. In fact, we only really started noticing things getting busier when the floor opened up to regular ticket holders. So honestly, I would argue the effect of the VIP tickets, at least for artist alley artists, are quite negligible, at least in the case of this specific edition of this specific convention. But yeah, the floor opens up to non-VIP ticket holders, and suddenly everything gets a lot busier. And suddenly I look up from my cash box straight at the most gorgeous, beautiful Ikto cosplayer. That is Ikto Tsukuyomi of Shugo Kyara fame. And it was fantastic. My childhood was made. My inner tween weeb was thriving. So, of course, with some unknown stroke of absolute mad courage or whatever, I waved them over. They were with a very gorgeous Miyazakuro cosplayer as well, which was a very awesome bonus. And we just, stood there, discussed Magical Girl shows for a while, and it was fantastic. Also, credit where it's due, the Ikto cosplayer was Rose Magpie on Instagram, but unfortunately I never found the Zakuro cosplayer on the grams. And I really hope I do, because she looked awesome and she was really nice. And I do mean that in not necessarily the sense that she came back to buy 3 pins from me later, but she also did do that. But it's nice to discuss Magical Girls at like 10:30 in the morning at a convention with absolute strangers, also absolutely not your first language, and having a ball. And basically the weekend was our oyster. Now, why do I say like the weekend was our oyster and not something, more encouraging than that? Well, we were about to run into our very first real problem that weekend, which is the following. During VIP opening hour, the one open, publicly available Wi-Fi network was doing absolutely fine. We had decent internet connection. However, at 10 a.m, people started coming in. The people with the regular tickets, and things started getting, pretty gosh darn busy. So, everyone there connecting their cell phones or smartphones to the Wi-Fi of the venue, the one open Wi-Fi network. I have to say though, there were like bronze, silver and gold networks as well, which were password protected, and I can only guess the connection on those networks would be better, because they would not be as overtaxed as the one open network. But hey, we were prepared. We bought data plans. Or at least we thought we were prepared, because we bought data plans. Because the structure of the building itself pretty much functioned like a Faraday cage. Now, a Faraday cage is a sort of device made out of metal that is designed to keep foreign signals out. Signals such as cell phone reception, which is necessary for a data connection. Do you see where I'm going here? Because not long after we would have our first card clients, people paying for their wares by card, and it took 5 minutes for the charge to get to the terminal, and by the time the charge was at the terminal it still had to be paid. I mean, we were lucky to have such absolute patient angels coming to our table to purchase wares, but I have to say, at least for us, it was very frustrating. Luckily, one of our neighbors, she was in one of the spots that actually did have a decent reception, like 2 out of 4 bars perhaps, and she made a data hotspot so we could basically connect our cell phones to her data plan by turning her phone into a Wi-Fi router, which was not ideal, especially for her, I think. I really hope her phone bill didn't go up because of us, but it was a solution. It was not my favorite solution, but it was a solution. And although most of our card payments still took a long time to complete, at least they didn't fail anymore. And also, in addition to being a Faraday cage, if a cell signal was able to get in or out and you finally got on the phone with someone, it was extremely hard to understand them because the noise from the other vendors and the entertainers was so loud and there was nothing just keeping it from the other areas, that basically anyone who called me, I had to tell, you have to text me, otherwise I'm not going to understand what you're saying right now. So then, with that problem out of the way, our con continued mostly as usual. There wasn't really anything out of the ordinary. On the first day alone there were like 2 Mew Ichigos, which was fantastic, especially since Tokyo Mew Mew is hitting me again pretty hard as my, I have to say, almost main hyperfixation. I don't know, but it's great. I love it. It feels good to feel 14 again. So then lunchtime rolls around, which is actually usually the slowest time in the artist alley. So I whip out my Pokeball, which I made freshly the night before. Let's see what was in it. I had pickled red onion, I had carrots, wakame salad, radishes, imitation crab, smoked salmon, edamame, and what else did I have? I don't remember, but I topped it off with some sriracha mayo, which I made for the first time. It was fantastic, and soy sauce, and you know, it was great. It was filling, it was, as far as I can guess, quite a healthy lunch at a convention, and it tasted good, so like, that's a triple win, quadruple win? I'm not sure, I wasn't counting. So then the afternoon goes by pretty well. At this point I am mostly occupied discussing anime with strangers and having a general good time, listening to Jason Page's concert at the other end of the venue. There was basically nothing keeping that sound away from the artist alley, so we still heard it quite well, even, what would it be, 50 to 70 meters away from it. So then 4 p.m. rolls around, which is regular inter-lunch and dinner dip time, so since my brother had gotten the both of us okonomiyaki at Tomacon, I decided to treat him to some okonomiyaki and basically pay off my okonomiyaki debt to him. So then I came back, plate of okonomiyaki in hand, and our table was an absolute madhouse, mostly for his merch, but I made some sales as well. We had our okonomiyaki, and slowly we started to notice that even though just before it had been a madhouse at our table, overall the day had been quite slow. And of course it wasn't as slow as the first edition of Heroes Made in Asia in the Netherlands, because that was during COVID with restrictions in full swing, so it was still an improvement on the first edition. But it was also, not ideal circumstances to be selling art at an artist table. And slowly we started noticing that other artists in the artist alley were sharing those exact frustrations, which, I felt bad for them because, of course, sharing those frustrations is never good news when you're an artist, but on the other hand, it did feel good that we weren't the only ones. But we weren't giving up hope, because that's something we are terminally bad at, in our family at least. Because there was still a whole Sunday left, and we knew that all of the weekend tickets to the con had sold out. So we figured what we didn't make today we'll make tomorrow, because people might be taking stock of everything that's at the con on Saturday and then buying on Sunday. So that was basically the thought process we were operating on, and it has proven correct at previous conventions. So with that anecdotal evidence in tow, we decided to just keep on chugging along with big smiles on our faces and make the best of it that we could. So then 6 p.m, time to close the con. We covered up our booth with a leftover tablecloth, got to the car, and then noticed that there were no parking tickets in our envelope. So my brother, angel that he is, because my ankles were dying if not dead, he ran back into the venue to the other end of it to find the organization and buy some, or at least get some parking tickets from them there. Ran the whole way back to me, who was still sitting in the car, vibing to some top tier anime tunes. And being tired, being done, and wanting to go home. So we get home at like 8 p.m, tired. Our pizza's waiting for us in the oven because our parents are absolute angels as well. We have our quick and greasy dinner. I watch some TV with my mom, go to bed, watch the latest episode of Spy Family, and go the heck to sleep, because tomorrow would be day 2 of the con. So day 2, alarm goes off, not quite as early as on Saturday, but still earlier than I would get up on a regular weekday, and we get ready to go to the con. I get dressed in my cosplay of someone who is 10 years younger than myself, and wear my Good Omens / Supernatural t-shirt, completely ignoring the media circus that happened around Misha Collins the week before, and also the fact that I have yet to see a single episode of Supernatural in my entire life. This time we're in the car by 7:30, and we're at the venue by about 8:15 in the morning. We get to our booth, uncover it, have a talk with the other artists in the artist alley, so long as the con wasn't open to VIPs, because early VIP opening was on Sunday as well. And I got talking to this other artist who has a lot of magical girl things, which is not necessarily important to this part of the conversation that we had that I'm about to talk about, because I outlined my problem, or it's not necessarily a problem. I basically outlined that every time I see someone cosplaying as a character that I have made merch of, I will basically always wave them over if I have to, compliment them on their cosplay, because usually the cosplay looks absolutely awesome. And then if they see the merch I made, they see it. If they don't, they don't. If they like the merch I made, they might buy it. If they don't, they don't. And I adopted this strategy mostly because I don't want to push people into buying things that they may not want. But then on the other hand, what she said that really rang true to me is that if they are cosplaying said character, you already know that they like them enough to dress as them. So they may like to buy your merch. So why not just point out to them that you have it, and then see where it goes from there? And I was like, yeah, but I don't want to push them. And then she completely validly said, you're not pushing them. You're just pointing out that it's there. Because most of the time when a cosplayer will approach your table, it is not guaranteed that they will see what you've made for various reasons, because artist tables can be quite crowded with merchandise, which means it's easy to overlook things, or perhaps they're wearing colored lenses, which makes it hard for them to see in general. So I'm like, yeah, fair point, I'm gonna try and put this into practice. So I tell my brother, hey, there is an absolutely gorgeous Yor cosplayer around here. If she's ever near our table, please call over the murder mommy, and I'll try to strike up a conversation with her about Spy Family and show her my pins. Unfortunately, she never really came close enough to the table to wave her over in a casual manner. So unfortunately, I didn't really get the opportunity to talk to her. But dear Yor cosplayer, if you're watching this, know that your cosplay is absolutely stunning, and I respect the hell out of you. So the convention floor opens on Sunday and things continue mostly towards the trend of Saturday, which means the Wi-Fi was once again absolutely dismal, and we once again had to call upon our neighbor to use her phone as a Wi-Fi hotspot. And yet somehow Sunday manages to be even slower than Saturday. Now, I don't know exactly why this is, and I'm very curious to know. Perhaps people had been on Saturday, felt like they'd seen everything and just didn't come back. That's a quite valid, honestly, reason. And what we also noticed, by the way, we also noticed this on the Saturday, but we didn't really start putting 2 and 2 together until Sunday. But there were a lot of young people, and this is not a bad thing. I mean, young people at anime conventions, of course, are fine. It's good to have. But what also happens is that if they're young enough, like say between the ages of, let's say, I think the youngest we saw was about 9-10 years old, and 14-15, the parents both tended to tag along as well. So if that's one anime fan to a family, it's definitely one visitor, plus 2 parents who may not be interested in anime and may not be interested in buying anime merchandise. Combine that with apparently low ticket sales, and suddenly it makes sense that we're not making what we were expecting out of this convention. So once again, afternoon rolls around, lunchtime, I eat another Pokeball, and I make plans to go to the other end of the food court this time, or at least that day, around 4 p.m. and get some takoyaki, which we also had at Tomocon like 3 weeks earlier, just like we had okonomiyaki at Tomocon 3 weeks earlier. However, I never end up going. The reason why will shock you, but let's put a pin in that. So the afternoon continues in that way afternoons tend to do. A couple of other Ichigos pass by, I wave them over, we talk a bit. And then the worst possible thing happens that could happen to me that day, which is I get a text from work saying that there is a problem with some settings on a website. And the thing about making websites is that this process often takes place online, which was something that was exceedingly challenging in the place I was at. So I texted back saying, hey, I am not home right now. I will not be home with my computer until about 8 p.m. Can this wait? No, it can't. So I say, okay, I'm going to try this on my phone. It may take a while and it may not work at all, but at least we'll have tried. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so then I do that. And I know exactly what has to happen, so that's not challenging at all. So I log into my work email, which takes about 10 minutes, give or take, factoring in the 2-step verification. And finally, we're in business. So I go in, I do the deed, I take a screenshot, and I gear up to send an email that basically says mission accomplished. However, I send that email and suddenly my phone says, you're offline, we will not send this email. So I'm like, okay, fine. But actually it's not fine because we wanted to notify our client that everything was now okay. So what do? I leave my brother alone at our table. I decide to go around the venue, walk around in hopes of getting an extra bar of reception, which equated to about 5 minutes of walking and holding my phone in the air, hoping for a stray scrap of cell service. But in the end, I got it. Email sent, crisis averted, and I could finally go back to the con. Now, it's interesting to note that while I was working on our client's website, I was still sitting behind the table. And then suddenly, the guys from the Butler Cafe showed up. And they came bearing, well, not gifts, but goods, which we could purchase at a reasonable fee. So I got myself this delicious chocolate cake roll, which I saved until finally the problem with the website was solved. And it was fantastic. It had a cute little cake pop on top, which I thought was going to be a choux pastry, so fluffy dough filled with even fluffier whipped cream. But it was a cake pop, so there's me trying to stab that cake pop with a bamboo fork with fat little pokey bits, and it doesn't make a dent. It just doesn't. And I'm like, what the hell is this whipped cream made of? So basically I start eating the cake around the skewer that kept the cake pop stuck in. And it was delicious. The chocolate mousse filling was fantastic. Legitimately the best I had in... the best chocolate mousse I had in... since COVID started. So in 2 years. And then when I finally got to the skewer and I scraped the chocolate mousse off of the skewer. I popped the cake pop into my mouth, thinking it is still a choux pastry. And I lose my shit at discovering that it was actually a cake pop all along. And suddenly, it made sense. But damn if that wasn't a good cake pop. And generally good cake roll. Needless to say, I did not go for takoyaki that afternoon. If it sounds like I'm riffing on this con, I'm not. I don't want to, because this is a growing convention, and with that come growing pains. But on the other hand, these are still my experiences, and I do think they should be allowed to discuss in public, even. So yes, I will say what I think, and honestly, I still think this con was quite well organized, and I really enjoyed being there and talking to all of the visitors. And I had a good time, but I also think that there are certain things that could be improved during future editions. And I think that if these things aren't talked about, they can of course not be improved, because how are you going to improve something if you don't know something's, not the way it should be, or rather not the way it could be. And of course I've also discussed these things with the organization directly. But I also think that it's good to say these things out loud, because there will be young artists out there that aspire to do an artist alley at some point. And I want younger artists, or at least less experienced artists, to be prepared for the fact that chances are you won't make your investment back, which I haven't. In fact, I have made a net loss of 79 euros this weekend. And I'm not mad about that, because I knew this would be a more expensive con than the ones I've done before. It's a risk that I willingly took and that I accepted immediately, and what I got out of it was a learning experience, a very fun weekend, ankles that were trying to actually murder me, and I got to make connections with new people, so all in all I would still consider this a good experience. Would I consider it a perfect experience? No, of course not. But then again, no experience is. Rating the second edition of the Dutch Heroes Made in Asia, I think I would give the con in general a 7 out of 10. It was generally very well organized. It looked absolutely stunning. A lot of the booths were very nicely decorated. House of Wax was going all out. There were sakura trees all over the venue, and yeah, it looked fantastic. It was well organized. Things were labeled pretty well. It was very clear where everything was. The map was very comprehensive, and logistically I think it was very well taken care of. Now, of course, there were a few things that had been overlooked, like the overloaded Wi-Fi networks. like the venue structure that kept cell signal outside that had been overlooked, and you know what? That's fine. That can all be used as a learning experience. And if asked the question, would I attend this con again as an Artist Alley artist, I would say yes, absolutely yes. My brother and I have already signed up for the next edition, which should take place in October this year, so I'm hoping for some spooky Halloween vibes, in addition to perhaps some of my points of feedback being taken care of, like perhaps giving the artists access to one of the higher tiers of the Wi-Fi networks. Because operating a card terminal on spotty Wi-Fi is not a great experience. But however, should I attend in October and no improvements have been made, then that will probably have been the final Made in Asia I attend in a long while. Except perhaps the one in Belgium, but only time will tell. Of course, I will keep you posted in the next Confessions of a Con Artist. And that just about does it for my report on the second edition of the Dutch Heroes Made in Asia. It's time for me to do the YouTubery thing and tell you that if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. My next convention will be Abunai in August, which is still quite a while away, but it's always sooner than you think. Of course, I hope to see you there, and if I don't, hopefully I'll see you in the next episode of Confessions of a Con Artist. And with that, I bid you a nice day. Okay, so this was my first time doing something quite this vloggy. If you have any feedback, it's of course welcome. I try to post speed paints on the regular, and my $3 and up patrons get access to my full art stream archive, which is also hosted on here.